Hey, how you doing? Just here by the Danube, next to the Hungarian Parliament building. One of the strangest things that happens a lot is that most people actually believe that they're better than the average and that the rules don't apply to them. What does that mean? Well, what it means is that people generally ignore statistics, which I think is a crazy thing because statistics are the only thing that are probably the closest to what actually happens in this world, and to deny them is just crazy, Like, let's look at some examples. Have you ever noticed why all these big, massive infrastructure projects, right, they just always seem to like overrun on time and budget? And we're not talking like a little bit. If you look at the big project, you overrun sometimes 3 or 4 times, and these are like hundreds of millions, billions, some of these projects, and they just overrun massively. And you think, how are they getting that so wrong? And it's because the people that are putting the plans together and the project bids together, they don't believe that whatever's happened in the past in terms of statistics will happen to them. They don't factor in what could go wrong. And it's almost like Murphy's Law. You've heard of Murphy's Law. If something can go wrong, it probably will. So why don't they factor it in? Another example is in marriages, right? No one gets married believing that they're going to split up. You know what I mean? But they still do it anyway. It's just crazy. And another one, here's another example. Starting a new business. I don't know what the statistics are. It's something like 1 in 10 or 2 in 10 make it and the rest fail. That's the majority failing, right? Within something like 5 years, which, they're not going to be around those businesses, which is crazy really, because, who would take those odds if they knew the facts? And it's because everyone that starts a business thinks, I've got the best idea in the world. I'm brilliant. Nothing's ever going to happen because I'm good and I'm going to avoid all the mistakes, until it hits them in the face and they make a mistake. And sometimes, it might not be them making a mistake. It might just be a market condition or something happens. And there's something called, I spoke about this in other videos before, there's a rule called regression to the mean. So if you happen to do particularly well, or you get lucky or whatever, or, if you avoid all the mistakes, over time, you will just fall back to the mean. Everyone falls back to the mean. And that means that eventually statistics win out. So I know this almost sounds quite pessimistic, and I'm an optimist. I'm not a pessimistic person, but if you want to get real on, the best way to go about anything is to research statistics and start with the statistics as almost like your average baseline, and go from there. If you can improve things, great. But as the saying goes, plan for the worst and hope for the best. I think you can do a bit more than plan for the worst and hope for the best. I think you can definitely plan for the worst. Well, tell you what, plan for the mean, average, what normally happens, or the range, and then try and improve on that. I'm not saying you can improve, but even getting average results. So if you think about it, if a business does particularly well, at some point it tends to fall back within what that particular business does within a particular area, within that particular niche. And people think that, hot shot C-suites, and yeah, they can have an impact, but things like the people running the businesses have an impact on reducing errors and things. But even that doesn't have a huge effect on businesses. If you look at it statistically, it still falls within where that particular business is in that particular market. And this is why I think it's really important to research the business that you go into. When I started a business, and the business I started was, fairly risky, but high barrier to entry it was. It is. Sorry, it's still going. 11 years now. High barrier to entry. But once you get in, it becomes easy. But to get there, it was a right slog. And you wonder why some businesses succeed. And the ones that do succeed, you know what it is? I was reading about this. It's because some founders, or the people that start these businesses, some people have just got that much grit, they don't know when to quit, even though the odds are against them. And you could argue that they've wasted the time. They still won't quit. And that's why they carry on and they end up making it through. So yeah, don't ignore statistics, all right? They'll eventually catch you out. Or there's a good chance that statistics will catch you out. It's not. The better way of doing things is to factor in the stats, the statistics, what normally happens, and work from there. Because if you've budgeted for statistics and you're not going to get caught out, are you? Worst thing you can do, like one of these big projects, we see them all the time, don't you? Estimated at, I don't know, whatever, 1 billion, turns out 7, something crazy like that. I'm plucking out numbers, but I've seen enough infrastructure projects that run over budget. I think Crossrail in the UK was one of them, went hundreds of millions over budget, stretched out time, years added to the project, and it's just a familiar tale. Another big example is in politics and the economy. If you ever read anything about economy, there's always familiar tales where governments ignore the mistakes of the past. You think about economic cycles. Maybe this is just a cycle, but I'm not qualified to talk about the economy at all. But have you ever noticed that government comes into power thinking they're going to make massive changes, and guess what? Nothing ever changes. I think you had all sorts of the American president. I think President Obama came in with like huge amounts of promises.
I'm proposing a $40 million initiative.
Looked really good, brilliant. Everyone was over the moon. Did anything change? No, I think it actually got worse in some areas. Why is that? It's because they're ignoring the regression to the mean. Everything just statistics. This is what happens. This is how the world works. It's very hard to change politics, particularly by one government, because the world is a big, intricate machine that works off the economy. No one has the power to change that. So why do they? Is it just a sales thing to get a vote? Maybe it is. But some of these politicians actually believe that they're going to make huge changes. They might make subtle little steps. And maybe that's good enough. Maybe that's what should be proud of. Don't make grand gestures that are just impossible to, I'm not going to say impossible, but they're almost not very likely to happen statistically. Big change won't happen. So yeah, don't ignore statistics. You can't escape them. The smart move is to factor them in, right? You're not above the rules. You're not better than anyone else. It always falls back. All right, hope you enjoyed that video. Don't forget to like it and subscribe, and see you all next time.